Welcome to the Battle Ready podcast. My name is Aaron McManus, and I am here with my father.
Hi, I'm Erwin McManus, and I am Aaron's father.
And together, we do this podcast every Tuesday and Friday. We like to break down life, politics, sports, family,
And
ideas.
2 times a week is killing me.
2 times a week is killing you.
Man, Friday, I was just getting in the rhythm of Fridays, then you have to add Tuesday, you overachieving child.
We're gonna keep. I'm full grown. We're gonna keep doing these twice a week. I think they're special. I like it, and I think it's good for us to connect with people. And
This is why my son is the firstborn, and I'm a secondborn. I'm chilling to get to the Friday. He's trying to push the 2 days. He'd go 5 if I would let him.
Well, usually we try to answer a few emails, but I don't have my computer on me because I have my cousin Taylor is in town, and I took him to go see some of LA, and so I don't have my computer.
Tell the truth, you saw Tenet for the second time in 2 weeks.
I did see Tenet for the second time in 2 weeks, and it was a nice little breather. The second time so much better. Second time so much more. You can understand so much more.
So shout out to Orange County for having a part of what we would call Radio Free America.
I don't know what that means, but their theaters are open, and it was nice, and it was awesome. So we are here, and we are going to talk about a few different things today.
Yeah, but I have a topic I want to talk about.
What would you like to talk about?
So we were on this TV show.
Okay.
And you were wearing a particular hat.
I was.
And the hat said Pagan on it.
I was wearing the shirt, actually.
Oh, you were wearing the shirt.
It was over the quarantine when I got in trouble for it.
So you had a shirt that said Pagan on it.
Yes.
And then you were politely asked to please change shirts because on the Christian show, they could not have the word pagan on your shirt, that it was offensive.
Right. Yeah, that was a thing. And, the guys who told me, I love them. So
they're great.
And they might listen to this.
But it did happen.
It did happen.
So and now you're wearing a hat that says Pagan USA.
I've worn a lot of hats that have said Pagan USA over the last couple weeks, maybe the last couple episodes.
So talk to me about what Pagan is, why you are wearing the gear, and why you started Pagan.
Okay. So here we go.
Just dive right into it.
Well, first, why Pagan? Why the name? Pagan is a brand that we're starting, and one of my best friends. 2 of my best friends, I'm starting it, there's 3 of us. And we started it 2 years ago in our garage, and it was kind of just this idea. We could create like a surf brand, and then it's kind of evolved, and then we kind of brought in moto, and then we got rid of moto because none of us were really riding motorcycles anymore, and then we brought in, we should do skate, and we've kind of brought all these different elements into what this brand will look like, and kind of just been talking about it the last 2 years. Released something right before quarantine happened in the beginning of 2020.
Perfect timing.
I guess it was May, so it wasn't right in the beginning. And then everything broke out with the Black Lives Matter movement, and I felt that in that time it would be insensitive for us to launch something new that took away from talking about real things. Mm-hmm. So we took a break, and now we've been back at it. And we're kind of building the teams.
It seems like you're really going at it now.
We're really going at it now. And I guess, so Pagan, and why Pagan?
So where's the name come from?
Matt Pagan. It's his last name. And I remember when I first met him.
He's one of the 3 guys.
One of the 3 guys, one of the partners. And his last name is Pagan. And so I remember just bugging him going, man, you guys start a brand called Pagan. Like, that's such a sick brand. Like, no one would ever guess that, 1, that you love God, but 2, that it's just like a normal surf, skate, whatever. So as it's developed, it kind of started as a joke. It kind of started as like a dream, and now we're building it slowly. And by no means are we anything yet, but 2021 I think will be much stronger. And
so Matt's background is that he
was a pro surfer.
Pro surfer.
Yeah, now he works with us at Mosaic and is awesome. He still surfs incredibly well, and he taught me how to surf.
And now you're a surfer.
Yeah, but it's different kind.
Well, what's the highest wave you've ever caught, you think?
The biggest? I don't know. Wave. I mean, we have footage of me on a big one, maybe 8 to 10 feet.
Wow.
But I fell pretty hard. But it was also awesome.
So you didn't catch that wave, the wave caught you.
No, I caught it. I have video of it. But it was interesting. So anyway, so he is also shaping surfboards. So he shapes surfboards. We're making some clothing. We're going to do some ready to wear. So essentially the whole idea of it is to create a brand, a label, behind his name, using his name. And the idea behind the brand is that we really want to create a space where young people could buy, whether it's skating kind of apparel or surf apparel, or just like great clothing, whether it's classic pants or a dress shirt or whatever, a t-shirt with a logo on it, or a hat, or even a surfboard, but without it having to be conglomerate owned. And most of the surf brands, skate brands are owned by these huge companies. And I'm not even against them. I just really wanted to give young people like the opportunity to buy something that was local, buy something that was made in USA, made in Los Angeles. And so that's been something like we're really building on, which is kind of cool. So that's
I love it, and I'm really excited about it. And you did not want to do this episode,
no,
but I wanted to do it because I think it's an interesting story
still either, by the way,
in so many different ways. First of all, I remember when I met the whole pagan family, and they did not know Jesus.
Yeah,
so they would all qualify in what the modern language of pagan would be. They were all good pagans, and one by one, these pagans became followers of Jesus, which is kind of awesome. And I think about 40 years ago, I did some research on the word pagan. And I always thought it was interesting because I wondered, how did the word pagan become the word pagan, right? You know, what's the history or etymology of a word? And what's fascinating me is that the word pagan actually means country dweller, someone who lives in the country.
But if you Google it, that's not what comes up.
It is. That's the original etymology.
No, it isn't. What originally comes up is not that. You have found that, but can you help us understand how you got to that?
I'm telling you, no. If you
I'm going to Google it right now. I'm going to Google it right now.
All right, look at this. Here we are having a
person holding religious beliefs or other than those of the main world religions.
And that's what the word was transformed into. Let me give you the story, the backstory.
Okay, but so, where?
I'll find it in a minute. First, I'm going to tell you the backstory. So I'm going to be the source, and then we'll go back and find it. The word pagan originally was country dweller, a person who lived outside of the city.
Okay, and where do you know that from?
From historical research.
Okay, go more than just...
No, let me just give you the whole background. So what happened is, after Jesus was crucified, buried, and raised from the dead, the movement of Christianity, the movement of Jesus spread from city to city. That's why you have books like Corinthians and Galatians and Ephesians and Romans, because it moved to the city of Ephesus, the city of Corinth, the city of Galatia, the city of Rome. And so as the movement of Jesus moved from city to city, it literally transformed cities, even to where the entire Roman Empire that was completely, quote, pagan, actually became converted to the message of Jesus, to where eventually Constantine, who was the king, the last, in a sense, king of that Roman Empire, became a Christian and was baptized and had all of his armies baptized. So what happened was the last people to actually come to faith were the ones who lived in the country, because it was too dangerous to live in the city, because in the cities is where you became a follower of Jesus. So I would always have the scenario in my head how now parents are so afraid of their kids going to the cities. Like all these Christian kids grew up in the suburbs, these Christian kids grew up in the country, and their parents are terrified they're going to go to New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco. Keep your kid away from the city or they're going to lose their faith. But 2,000 years ago, it was the opposite. Don't let your kid go to the city or they're going to actually believe in Jesus. Don't let your kids go to the city because they're going to find a faith. So the pagans were the outsiders. But I thought, here's how a word transforms. And now I'm going to find it in a second and you're going to talk. So this word is transformed from country dweller to a person who is a heathen, who does not believe in God, who eventually was seen as a person who either did not believe in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, one of the three big religions. You're an outsider, you're a pagan. And what I thought was so awesome is that this is a family name of the pagan family. And you have to reclaim your name. Names take on meaning based on the time in which they exist. And a word can actually change its meaning from country dweller to heathen. So why can't you and Matt and Eric and your team transform the word pagan to a person who comes from the outside and actually has so much courage and faith that it transforms its generation?
Well, that is a commercial if I've ever heard one.
All right, now you talk, and I'm going to find.
You sent it to me. You sent it.
I did.
No Siri right now. Siri.
But I did send it to you.
No Siri. We're on air. We're on air right now. No Siri. You did send it to me, but
you're still resisting.
No, I don't want. It's like when people quote science. Like that doesn't mean anything. You got to quote research. to quote someone who wrote something, who studied something.
And the
who
reason you're
discovered
having a
something.
hard time finding the original meaning is because the word pagan became so defined by a person who does not believe, or an outsider, or a person who's a heathen or irreligious.
Oh, okay, so
that it lost its original meaning.
So can we strike? Okay, so until you find it, let's hold on until you find it.
Here it is.
Where?
Okay, I'm on
Did you have to go to Google page 6?
www.dictionary.com. How more straightforward can that be? All right, pagan, definition of the word pagan at dictionary.com. How has the meaning of the word pagan changed? Here it is. Pagan comes from a Latin word paganus, meaning villager, rustic, civilian. In itself comes from a pagus, which refers to a small unit of land in a rural district. It was a demeaning Latin term like the word hick that originally lacked a religious significance. So the word meant outsider, and it was given a religious meaning of unbeliever. So I'm challenging you guys as you build your brand Pagan to redefine the name.
No, I agree. I agree with everything you're saying, and I know that because you've kind of raised me on understanding that idea, and you've used that in your messages before. And then when I met Matt, it kind of just made sense. And as we build it, it's kind of something that we're really figuring out what the identity is, what exactly we're gonna, what our look is, what the vibe is. But I do know that it's exciting, and we're really looking forward to building it and getting it on kids and people all over the world. And I talk a lot about, I guess, the youth for the youth, but we really are trying to keep it affordable, and that's hard to do when you make things in the US, but we're figuring it out, and it's actually been a lot of fun and a lot of headaches. And yeah, so it's been good. But yeah, to see, so you can go to PaganUSA.com.
So can I talk to you a little bit about the experience of starting something from scratch?
Oh my gosh, sure, but
because
I'm stressed.
I think there are people listening who would love to take an idea and turn it into a reality.
Okay.
Right now, you guys are carrying this whole thing on your own.
Yeah. I mean, we have 3 different roles, and the reason, and I think initially it was me and Matt. I think it was me saying, Matt, you got to do this. And then Matt was like, okay, let's do this. And then I was like, I can't do this just me and you. We need more people. And we were quite busy. We work for you. And I think that's why it's maybe taken so long, not because of you, but because we've been focused on other things at the time. And then we brought in Eric because he's incredible with finances, incredible looking at budgets, looking at scale, looking at contracts, making things legally sound and financially stable. And so we all kind of have a different part to play in the puzzle, in the relationship. But yeah, no, I was talking to a friend actually, Joshua Rhodes, who is a designer and has his own brand called The Last Adam. And I would actually love for him to come on here because I think it'd be fun to talk to him about this too. But I was like, hey, can I just take you to lunch and just bug you with questions? Because I genuinely don't know the answers to like, how much should I spend in the first year? Have I spent too much? Have I spent too little? What I'm spending isn't getting me what I want. How do I get to where we want to be? And he's like a year and a half, 2 years ahead of us, where he's been doing his brand, The Last Adam, and he's their designer. And also, I'm not a true designer. I'm more of like a producer or an editor or like a creative director. So graphic design isn't my thing. Physical clothes design is, and that we've been working on that. But we have great people. And I think, what was the question again? How do you start something from nothing?
Well,
I don't know.
You've already given me 2 principles.
Okay, 2 principles.
And that's why I listen to stories very carefully.
Okay.
Your first principle was,
yes,
it's more important than having a good idea is having good people.
Yes.
Because you began the story by talking about how you pulled together Matt, and then you pulled together Eric, and how you guys have formed a team together.
Right.
So even before the ideas were really clear, you already knew the kind of people you wanted to do life with, to build this vision with. Yeah,
I think a lot of it has to do with, I'm someone who very much, I hate to use the Enneagram or the Berkman or the Strength Finders, but I'm someone who I have a smaller circle of people in life. I don't need a ton of people in life, but those people I want to use and access and enable and empower and create with. And so if doing this, I remember when Matt and I started, I was like, I need Eric because Eric balances me out because I'm kind of I can get really into something and then I can just forget about it 2 seconds later and be on to the next thing and don't care about the last thing. And Eric keeps me like, okay, remember, we committed to doing this. This is what we wrote down on paper. And Matt's just like, Matt is the brand. Matt shapes the surfboards. He is the one with the culture and the contacts and so many of the surf world and skate world. And
I love the fact that you wanted to build his story.
Yeah, of course.
Which is very much like you. You love building other people's stories.
I love building other people's stories. And I think that's super important. I was actually talking about this at dinner yesterday with someone who kind of shared with me that in the past they've built other people and that they didn't really see they saw the fruit of that season and the labor in that person's life. But they didn't necessarily see it in their life. If anything, they took a back seat to that. And to that other person's life, and without sharing too much. And I thought it, I was like, oh, this is so interesting because this is where I work great in relationships. I do genuinely, when I care about someone a lot and I can see it, and I can't see it with everyone, but when I can see it with certain people, I want to genuinely build their life beyond what I think maybe they're living, or just even like I see an idea and I'm like, cool. Like I use this same guy to shoot almost everything that I've ever done at Mosaic. And any of the things that I'm a part of is always John Thomas Benson. He's always, he's always in the video. He's always in the conference thing. He's always in the photos. I think
he's what you look like in your imagination.
In my imagination, yeah. But also, he's just one of those guys where I'm like, whenever I'm around, he inspires and we do cool stuff together. Okay. And so I think that's kind of like with Matt and with Eric and these guys, it's like, how do you build a team? You build a team of people you want to be around.
Okay, so far, you give me 3 or 4 ideas that I think need to be highlighted. The first one was, you actually began building it on Matt's story, not your story, that find something that's bigger than you and build something that's bigger than you as a person. And the second thing is find the right people you want to do life with, not just work with.
I agree. So what's the third one?
My third one is find people who compliment you, people who do things that you don't do well. They basically make your weaknesses irrelevant.
Right. But here's the thing, and this is why I think this would be an interesting conversation, because you're building a new project as well. And so it's funny because, I'm talking to Joshua Rhodes. I obviously have like past.
Oh, that's the other one. There's a fourth principle before you go there. Because when you said you talked to Joshua, you said, you're not a designer. He's good at this. He's good at this. He's good at this. You've been going around and interviewing people who are better than you at different aspects of what the company requires.
Curious. Yeah, being curious.
You make yourself smarter by getting around smart people.
Yeah. And
I would say that'd be the fourth principle that you've highlighted is get smarter by being around smart people.
Yeah, and I think, when you, one question I asked Rhodes was, how much money have you spent? Like, if you don't ask me, mind me asking, like, how much in are you a year and a half, 2 years later? And maybe I just said maybe the last year, like give me like, what was 12 months of investment? And he gave me a number and I was a little bit over that just in my head. And I was like, okay. So I'm like kind of on par with someone who's starting something at the same level, meaning the same level, like the same demographic. We're different demographics, like who would wear his clothes versus our clothes, I think. But like, t-shirts, hoodies, that kind of stuff. But no, I think something, and like by no means, if you're Googling this right now, PaganUSA.com, it's not that impressive. We just have a few pieces out. I think we've released 5 or 6 different things. Most of my friends don't wear it yet. We don't wear it yet. I'm wearing this hat that we just developed. I wore a hoodie that we just developed and we just released. But we're like getting there, and as we're having these conversations, like what would we want to wear? I designed a shirt this last week. I designed it, which is kind of funny.
That's awesome.
And I sent it to you, and I sent it to Matt, and I sent it to Eric. And all 3 of you had the same response. That's really heavy. Like, I don't know if that can work on a t-shirt. And it has this word on it, and I'm not gonna say it because we may or may not drop it. But you were like, why this word? Why does it have to say that? It already says pagan. Why does it have to say another word that makes it more difficult to buy? And I've kind of just tested it out, like people who from the Battle Ready podcast who've been like, hey, I've been supporting pagan and bought a hat. Like I'm gonna get flack for it. Like everyone who buys it says this. I'm gonna get in trouble probably for like wearing it, but like. I'm so pumped I'm wearing it. And I'm like, that's the funny thing about it is that like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that people would judge the word so much. But I've been sending this other t-shirt out to people being like, what do you think? And they're like, I'm going to buy that too, like 100%.
Yeah, but you like creating a juxtaposition.
I love juxtaposition.
You love creating choosing a word that is normally offensive and turning it into something that becomes incredibly positive. You love taking dark things and putting light in the middle of it.
And I like some light things and putting some dark in it too. I think one of our producers is putting a fist up in the air. And what I mean by that is I think sometimes we live very safe, suburban, complacent lives in the name of Jesus. And in the name of Jesus, I think he would, in his own name, he would be bored of us. And we look at the life of Jesus, or we look at the life of so many people who died in Jesus' name, or in the mission of, building the church. They were so unafraid, or maybe they were afraid, but they just lived unafraid. And I think for me, choosing this word, I knew I didn't want to use Bible verses. I knew I didn't want to use super Christian language, because one, like as a pastor, there's only so many things I can do that is like the church. Like I would love, you got to create spaces where you can just meet people. Yeah. We want kids that are skating the Venice Bowl skate park to wear the clothing and never wonder. Yeah. We want kids though who know our story to go like, it's actually pretty cool because it's a pastor and it's kind of dark, but it's also really beautiful clothing, and it's also like fits really good, and it's not too expensive. And if I'm gonna go and buy a dress shirt, I'm gonna go buy it from Pagan. If I'm gonna buy a t-shirt, I'm gonna buy it from Pagan. I want to get to that level of a place. I want it to be so accessible. Without over spiritualizing,
I was thinking about how when Jesus talked about how you leave the 99 sheep to go after the one.
Yeah.
And how it's interesting that the word pagan was actually a description of the one.
Right.
And I know you, and you're a person where the one actually matters. Like the last one matters.
It does.
And I think it fits your brand that is called Pagan, because it's a reminder that the last one matters. And
I think yeah, you give me more inspiration on my brand, me and Matt, more inspiration on our brand than I think anyone else.
I'm excited. I just want you. I think it's really cool. I love the fact that you're risking again.
Well, I want to speak risking again. Did I stop risking?
All right.
Did I stop risking?
That's another podcast.
I disagree with your first statement.
Okay, which one?
You don't need to build something bigger than yourself. You need to build yourself bigger. And yeah.
Okay, unwrap that.
Because there's been seasons in my life where I wasn't big enough to do a brand. And not big enough meaning famous enough, but I think big enough meaning I didn't have the ideological, imaginative weight that I do now. I needed to learn. I needed to be taken through the process. I needed to watch. I needed to be like a fly on the wall for 10 years, 15 years to really learn. And now we're here, and I love when people discredit us because, oh, well, you should stay in your lane, or you should, just be these people. And I more and more just never want to be what people expect me to be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, when I say build something bigger in yourself, what I mean is that, and maybe I'm looking at the way that you love taking things that are even outside of you and building into them and making it bigger and bigger. But I do like that concept of making yourself bigger, like growing and getting deeper and developing a density to your story, to your brand.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I don't mind being corrected there. And because I think it's really important.
I wasn't saying correcting. I was just saying I disagree. But I remember I like for a brief moment you would put me in an acting class, and I was a film major, and I wanted to learn all about like behind the camera, in front of the camera. So I was doing an acting class in LA. And I remember sitting down with the coach, and the coach was like, you have a hard time going there emotionally because your life is not effed up enough. And this guy is not, he's just a normal guy.
Right.
And he just starts like cussing at me, which is funny. And funny because it was true. And it was interesting. And I don't know if it was like a subconscious thing, or maybe it was a self-destructive statement to me. But like kind of everything hard that happened in my life happened after, like a lot of the harder stuff happened afterwards, like the big moments in my life. And I look back at it and I go, you know what? It wasn't that I wasn't messed up enough. It was that I couldn't pretend to be messed up. And so I look back and I was like, okay, there's places in our lives where you will go through things, and there's places in your lives where you'll want to be someone that needs to have gone through things and you haven't gone through things yet. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at the beginning of a journey trying to do something that I wanted, trying to be someone at the end of my journey, and I wasn't able to access that. And now I'm kind of someone who's going, okay, I'm in the middle of my journey and I'm looking back going, wow, like it wasn't that I wasn't messed up enough. It was that genuinely like I couldn't figure out how to like, I didn't know enough about the world yet. That was really what it was. It wasn't the destruction. It was actually like the wisdom and the knowledge and the depth. I didn't have the depth. And so looking back at it now and then starting this brand, I think a lot of it is having these conversations internally of like, if you look at anything that we're building, can you take a layer away and actually think about what it says and what it means and why we do what we do? And even like we released a thing that I don't think anyone understands, like this construct, deconstruct, like it says it on the hoodie and it says Pagan USA. You know, his dad was a construction worker. He owns a construction company. And I just thought it would be such an interesting idea to bring like a modern take on construction company. That this idea that everyone is constructing something in our lives and everyone is deconstructing things in their life. That it was a metaphorical take on a construction perspective. That you know, his dad builds houses, builds teams, builds people, put roofs over people's heads, and we're clothing people. We're building things around people. We're building armor around people. We're having a maybe an ideological conversation that no one understands yet because we haven't done the greatest job telling the story, but we will. I think that's interesting to me. That's interesting because I'm like, okay, so I've lived some life now. So how do we tell some stories about the lives we've lived through the clothing we're making? And maybe I'm thinking too much about it.
No, actually what comes to mind is you need to make yourself big enough to have room for others.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I think that's the thing, is that your life has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And because of that, you have enough self-confidence to have room for other people in your life.
Do I have self-confidence?
On Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays and Fridays, there's enough self-confidence. But I do think, I want to talk about this. I think whenever you start something, or whenever you build something, like I like this idea of how do you build up other people? What point do we build up ourselves? You know, because I think even people in the church or people in a business setting, you know, we're hired on to build other people. We're hired on to build a product that ultimately builds someone else's wealth. Mm-hmm. And then, or we go and we're the crazy ones and we take a risk and we do it on our own and we fail probably 99% of the time. And then that 1% can become so incredibly successful. Like, when do you know when it's time to build yourself?
Well, I think you should always be investing in yourself.
Okay.
And the greatest investment you'll ever make is in your own growth, learning, and when there's more of you, there's more of you to give to others.
Right.
And so I think a mistake. I remember years ago I talked to this, so many actors here in LA, and talked to this guy who saying he was going to be an actor, and that he was an actor, and that was his only passion. And so I asked him. I said, "So what days do you go to acting classes?" He goes, "Oh, I don't go to acting classes. I can't afford them." I said, "Well, then you aren't serious about becoming an actor. And because if you're serious about something, you'll invest in yourself and you'll pay the price to grow." And I thought about even like your sister, who has been singing for years and has taken vocal classes for years and years and years, ever since she was young. And she would go to other people who were not as talented as her and say, "Hey, you need to, take some voice lessons, and let me recommend this voice coach." And people would be insulted. "How dare you tell me I need to take voice lessons?" And Mariah would come to me and say, "Why are they insulted when I take voice lessons and I'm the one leading this team?"
Yeah, she created an incredible culture, because now it's a standard. If you're going to be on the team, you're going to go to voice lessons.
Yeah.
And she also is incredibly humble. I don't ever think she leads with it. Like, "Hey, I do voice lessons. You should too."
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't know. But she practiced. Her voice coach is like her trainer. It's her trainer. If you look at that muscle, look at it as a muscle. You don't just stop going to the gym once you have muscles. Like, you got to keep going to keep them. So Mariah goes to keep staying strong in her voice. But I agree with what you're saying. You want to finish?
No. I just think those are like examples when you're saying, when do you build yourself? I'm going, you should always be building yourself.
Building into yourself.
and investing in yourself. Like, I mean, for years I've gone to TED, and for probably 20 years I've been a member of TED, and I took a couple of years off here, but it's a really expensive enterprise. But for me, that investment in myself allows me to invest more into other people.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else could see it as a waste of money to be there for 5 days, listen to hundreds of speakers. And it's quite a discipline to listen for 10 hours a day for 5 days.
Yeah.
And to listen to people nonstop every 15 minutes with virtually no breaks. And then at nighttime to be in these social settings that are exhausting for me. But these learning opportunities, for me, it's like a boa constrictor. I'm eating a giant pig in one meal that I can digest, and it gives me strength for a whole year.
Wow.
And I feel that you're a person probably who was always more inclined to investing in others and feel like you should not be investing in yourself.
Yeah, I think.
You felt that it would be wrong to invest in yourself at times. And
yeah, maybe feeling guilty, or maybe feeling like didn't ever want to put people through an obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get over it. And I think you get over it because you realize, like, yeah, it is that idea of, like, you have to find something bigger than yourself. Like, you see it as just building me or building you or building one other person. No, like, you're right. Like, you should always put yourself in a position where you're learning things, you're being challenged, and you're growing. And sometimes you get to work for people, and that pays for your growth. Or sometimes you take the risks, and like, I look at whenever I meet an actor in LA, I ask them, how long are you willing to be poor? And I genuinely, like, that like determines, I think, the success rate or understanding their mental stability. And I do think, like, whenever we do brands or projects, I'm like, okay, how long can I survive on nothing to fund this and figure this out and pay for it? You know what I mean? Do you ever think like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I kind of look at things. I don't really start anything with an intention to fail, but I'm always aware that even if I do my best, I may fail. But I always feel that most people are more prepared for failure than they are for success. And that it's in the early stages of success that you have your greatest opportunity to fail because you were not prepared for success. So, if you have pagan hats or pagan shirts or whatever it is, and suddenly you sell out, but you didn't really believe you would sell out.
Right.
And now you're 3 months behind in a back order, and then customers are unhappy because they've ordered, but they can't get it.
Yeah.
Success is a more crippling enemy at times than failure.
Yeah.
And because if you fail, let's say you make a certain project and you don't sell them out, well, to me, that's research. That's learning. You're figuring things out. Going, okay, we have to adjust the product, or we have to adjust the marketing. And because maybe if the product's great, we just didn't get the message out.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the pricing that's bad. Or maybe
there's a lot of factors. And all that, to me, every failure is just you paying for your own education. You remember years ago, we went to Hawaii and shot 5 short films. And we made a huge investment financially. And people asked me, well, why are you renting a helicopter and shooting with the door taken off? And, why are you shooting underwater? And why are you doing? And I said, I was paying for my education as a director. I wanted to learn all these things. I wanted to learn how to shoot underwater. I wanted to learn how to shoot from the air. I had you on a cliff,
Also, we made a lot of money on that shoot.
We did.
I did the numbers on that one.
Yeah, we did. We did okay.
The first one, though, before that one, and I don't say that to brag. I say that because yes, that was college, that was university, and we spent 50, 75 grand more than we would have in our company. And if you don't know, we had a company 10 years ago that was doing films, commercials, all types of content. But we made that decision because there were things you wanted to try.
That's right.
You wanted to shoot out the back of a car. You wanted to shoot out the back of a helicopter. You wanted to shoot underwater. You wanted to work with stunt people.
I wanted to shoot a motorcycle going down the highways.
We did. So we did all those things. But in the one before that, or the two before that maybe, we spent so much of the budget, we barely made any money because we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And we were just bleeding money because that's what happens when you don't know how to do things and you're just paying for stuff and you're like, do I need to pay for this, or do we need this many crew? But then we figured it out.
Right. But I always saw those things as my investment in my education.
Right.
And I was willing to take those risks and carry that. And most of the time, they came out pretty well. Sometimes, we learn how to do it better.
Yeah, there's some of them, yeah.
But I think that's the whole point is risk is the greatest investment you can make in yourself.
Risk is the greatest investment you can make in yourself. I'm going to write that down.
Because if you don't risk, you don't give yourself an opportunity to grow. And so if you avoid risk, sure, you may not lose money, but you certainly will not make money. If you don't risk, well, you won't have your identity challenged, but you certainly will not discover your potential and your capacity.
Right.
Risk is the environment from which every opportunity comes from. And so to me, I've lived a life of risk, and that has been my investment in myself.
So maybe this is interesting. I think we're going somewhere here. You've made it this far. I think this will be the part that's rewarding. I think sometimes I am unwilling or fearful to risk on myself. That when it comes down to, I have no problem, feel super confident spending your money.
Thanks.
To help build you. And I'm confident that I'll find the right creative or find the right designer or find the right producer or find the right, I'm super confident in the people around me. Mm-hmm. But when it's, even when we started Pagan, I was like, I want to design the first things because I really want to be that. I wanted to be Joshua Rhodes. And I didn't mean it. I wasn't even thinking like that. I want to be the guy who can kind of do it all by himself. Mm-hmm. And then I was talking to Joshua Rhodes, and I was like, yo, bro, I cannot do it all by myself. And he gave me some good insight. And you're someone who doesn't ever even try to do it by themselves.
No.
You literally don't even, you're starting your thing, and you're so much further ahead in a month, or in the 6 weeks you started, to the point where I wake up and it haunts me right now. And I'm so frustrated because you've gotten, 11 pieces together.
Yeah, but the first person I grabbed was you.
You did. And I'm building your thing for you right now. And I was in your meeting for 4 hours.
And you don't even know how many times I'm texting Mariah and saying, hey, do you like this or this? What do you think about this or this? And to me, you and Mariah are part of the way that I see. I see you guys as part of my eyes. And the culture, you're part of your generation, you have great taste.
So was there a point in your life, because I think, you have a job, if there's anything your job or your calling in life, mm-hmm. you're a speaker. You don't need a lot of people to speak. It would be preferable if you had people in the room, but there's not people on stage with you having you speak. How did you become so collaborative?
I think genuinely, it's a mindset from, it's funny, I was going to say, an internal belief that I didn't have enough talent to succeed alone. And I don't want to say that in too negative of a way, but I think people who are prodigious when they're young, who are so talented, who are so gifted, they live with the liability because they become convinced really early on that they can do everything without anybody's help. And I never had that. I never had any natural talent that just emerged. I never had people going, oh my goodness, how do you do that? Or how do you see that way? And so I felt like I had a curse. I feel like I saw beautiful things that I wasn't capable of creating.
Okay.
Great outcomes I wasn't capable of achieving.
Okay.
And so I either had to live my life with this overwhelming sense of despair that I could never create what I see or do, what I longed for, or I had to find the material of people with their talents and gifting and intelligence and pull them together. And over the years, I think if I were objective, maybe I've become a more talented human being. But my mindset never changed, because the longer you live, and if you do the things that you're really designed to do, you begin to realize, oh, I'm pretty good at this. There are things I'm actually good at, and there are things that maybe there was some raw material in my life, and discipline made that raw material talent.
But was there ever a moment where you realized this is where I need to be the most collaborative?
I always feel that whenever I'm starting something from scratch, I should.
I'm still going to ask you the question.
Find a way to be collaborative.
When was the moment in your life?
When was the moment in my life?
Yeah. What age were you when you were no, if I'm going to do other things, I need other people?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've ever dissected my life like that. I think it was probably somewhere after I met Jesus.
So you thought you were a solo act.
Yeah, suddenly I feel very naked, but I'm looking back and I'm realizing I don't think I ever. Oh, I can tell you this, that when we were younger, we were playing sports.
Okay.
I was really good at I was always the last person picked for teams. So I knew what that felt like. So when I finally became the captain of teams, I would always choose the players who were the last people chosen.
Okay.
And then I began working with them. But that's not about collaboration. That's actually about development.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find a way of escape here.
Yeah, you have a thing about you where you always pick, and this is like to our staff members, to me, it's an indictment. I've always said you don't pick the most talented people in the room. If anything, when people know they're talented, you're less interested in them. You always pick the person who's a bit more raw.
Yes, I pick people that I think are diamonds in the rough, that people only see the rough.
Yeah.
Yes, years ago, almost 20 years ago, I was a part of a group of these world leaders that were, in our 30s. And we had different times where we focused on different people in the room. And they did this retreat that was like this intervention with me. And in the intervention, they gave me 2 outcomes. They said, if you don't focus, you will not succeed. You lack focus. And the second thing they told me is, you spent your life investing in wannabes, and you need to focus your life on high talent people. And I remember saying to them in that room, because it's hard, this was a room of people I have respected and admired and gave room to speak into my life. I said, I'll embrace the fact that I need focus.
Yeah.
But I adamantly reject your input that I spend my life on wannabes. They're not wannabes, they're gonna-bes.
Work in progress.
Because I was what you define as a wannabe. I was the person no one saw any talent in. I was the person that no one felt they should choose on their team. And I've had a mission all my life to prove that there's grade A talent in every human being.
Yeah, I think it's the worst thing in the world when you peak in high school. Like, those kids who just they got so cool. They were the star quarterback, but now they're the used cars. It's not even bad. I didn't even mean it in a bad way. I mean it like, I grew up with these kids. I look back and I was the roller backpack nerd freshman year in high school. I had a roller backpack.
I'm so sorry.
I'm not even going to tell you the color because it's so embarrassing. I'm not going to tell it. I don't want to tell it.
Tell us the color. This is battle ready. We're supposed to be authentic, raw, transparent.
It was pink. It was pink.
You had a pink backpack.
Yeah, where were you?
Wait a minute.
Where were you when that was happening?
I was out of the country because I would never let you go to school.
You traveled so much.
I would have never let you go to school with the pink backpack.
I had a pink roller backpack. I wore a sweater vest, a cut-off sweater vest with a part down the middle of my hair.
Now, if you wanted a pink backpack, I would have supported you. But
and on the first day of school, when they take your photos, they put my name. When you get your student ID, they put my name as Karen.
I know.
Which looking back at it now,
you were the original Karen.
I was the original Karen.
Karen.
So imagine every day having to check into class, my name Karen.
Karen McManus. And
there was no gonna be. I was gone. I just wanted to be forgotten. I wanted to go right then and there. I wanted to leave. But I would say this, though. You pick people no one else would pick, and you make it work. Like, we're like the Mighty Ducks, I think, as an organization. We are like the Mighty Ducks in that, like, the Mighty Ducks maybe in the first movie. Not when they go to the prep school in, like, the third or the fourth one, but, like, in the first one where they're, like, the renegades and...
See, I got to go old school and more classic.
What?
One of my favorite movies of all time was a movie called The Dirty Dozen.
The Dirty Dozen?
And I always saw our staff as The Dirty Dozen. Our teams would always be the Dirty Dozen. We're the guys that everyone else throws away, and we're going to prove that we can do the impossible together.
I like that.
And that, to me, is like my life mission, and I feel like it's a part of what we're about, and I see that in you, even when you don't like it, that it's in you. It is in you.
Oh, it is. I think it's in all of us. We genuinely, and I think this is a real cool thing to like how we build teams and how we even pick friends and how people around us, we genuinely want people who are more interested in other things.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to building yourself, how do we know when is enough building other people? How do we know when it's like it's time? It's like it's time to like I'm going to make this stand to go build myself?
Yeah, I think that you build other people all your life. But it doesn't mean that you're building other people's brands or other people's companies.
Right.
And I do think that, I mean, this is the advice I gave.
You never stop building people. That's what
You
you're
never
saying.
stop building people.
Whether you're the person or whether you're a person on the person's
And
team.
if you own the company, you have more power to build people. See, that's the thing is that, but I've always said, look, if you can own what you're doing, then own it. Like if you can start a company and build it and create jobs for other people as a result of the risk and investment and sacrifice you make, then you should do it. Right. So I've always been for that entrepreneurial catalytic, and you and your sister carry that gene. It's interesting because I look at your mom, your sister, and you, and all three of you choose to invest in people that other people wouldn't necessarily invest in. And all three of you see a part of your value as building people up.
Well, I think it's because it's who we deeply resonate with. And I don't think it's so much that no one else would. I think it's mostly that it's not the obvious choices.
Right, because you're choosing character over talent.
Yeah. I choose, loyalty, character, interest, dynamic.
Passion.
And then you like meet people that you like maybe should have been friends with, and you're like, dang, I should have been friends with you years ago, and I don't know how this didn't happen. But with that to say, I want to ask you a question. Is there anything in your life that you feel like you're moving from, in whether it's business or it's how you are as a leader or it's how you are as a builder? Because I feel like, I'll start this one because I actually do feel like I'm making a change. I feel like growing up, I was always like a strategist, theorist. I could help someone. Like, so when I was younger, someone was like following me in a parking lot. We were all walking, and she said, "Do you know where you're going?" And there was like a group of us, one of Mariah's friends. I said, "I have no idea." She goes, "I always just follow you because you walk more confidently than the rest." And I was like, but it brought something up. Because I was like, oh, if I don't know where I'm going, I'm going to actually lead people to a bad place.
Yeah. And
so I had this thought. I was like, okay, so sometimes I'm a theorist where I think I'm able to talk about all the things we can do. I'm not actually able to physically achieve the things that we do. And some of that comes with having an imagination, and some of it comes with being a total coward. So now, like trying to build this company, going, okay, I can't be a theorist anymore. We can't talk about it every day.
That's right.
We actually have to go and do it every day. Do you feel like there's anything in your life that you're doing that now? Because I feel like I'm 32 and I'm making that adjustment.
Well, first of all, I think that is the key growth mechanism. I don't give room in my life for people who are theorists, who are not on front lines.
Okay.
I think that ideas untested are worthless.
You leave a lot of room for me.
Right? And I push you to risk.
You do.
And that's why I want to do an entire episode on Pagan and what you guys are doing together. And
has anything?
Because we don't have a sponsor for Battle Ready.
No.
So we're going to sponsor Pagan. We're going to do it backwards.
Have you ever had a moment? And this is getting long, and we'll probably chop some stuff up. But have you ever had a moment where things changed for you? Like, were you when 50 years old, when you told mom, I'm not going to do what everyone expects of me anymore. I'm going to just be who I am. Do you have that moment? Do you have a moment like that where things just clicked and you're like, I'm going to go back into fashion, or I'm going to go back into like what? We're not talking about you, but we are talking about you. Yeah. What brought you back into clothing?
That's a really good question. I guess the way I would describe it is when there are things on your back burner and they just keep getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and they just start coming to the front burner section.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I walked away from, public expression of fashion. And was it 10 years ago is when we kind of closed down the studios, and I haven't really been involved in fashion publicly in 10 years. And I've done a few things just for myself, but not for,
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what those few things were.
And I made a suit, different things like that,
Yeah.
But I just kept thinking, I want to express some ideas and a part of my soul, through clothing, and which is kind of ironic because I've been attacked by people because of my sense of fashion, and because of my love for the art form of shoes and clothing, and I just think there's real poetry and beauty and artistry in clothes. And I also think that
So what did it? If you can say it in a sentence, what did it?
the quarantine, the pandemic, the shutting down of a nation, the despair people feel because they're losing their jobs and losing their futures. I wanted to create a future that feels impossible against impossible odds.
I had a moment where a friend looked at me and said, you know, they asked like, what's pagan? Like, what's this hat you wear all the time? What's this thing you do? And I was super shy about it and super shy about it and not really like confident at all. And they looked at me and said, I hope you make so much money doing this project.
I love that.
And it honestly was this singular moment where you've been telling me to do this for 2 years. Me and Matt and Eric have been talking about doing this for years, even with other buddies who have always encouraged us. There's one person sitting me down going like, I hope you make so much money that you like have that it changes your life. And I just had never been that confident about it. I'm like, how can a total stranger be more confident about my life than me? And that really shook me. And so now I'm like, okay, whatever happens, whether it's like, you know, we create something so successful or we create something that completely bombs, I am going to be proud of it and confident in it.
Yeah. And have fun doing it. Do something you love.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the greatest gift in life is when you can get paid to do what you love. Because then it doesn't feel like work anymore.
I agree. So
and it's a calling, it's a passion. It feels like a destiny.
Yeah. So should we go and get paid to do what we love?
Well, here we are doing what we love to do, but we're not being paid.
No.
So,
but people email and write reviews and
we're getting paid
share it with their friends.
Reward so many different ways.
It is. And we're so grateful. If you were listening to this podcast, I hope you enjoyed it. It took us a while to get there, but we got there.
I don't know. I think you gave us a lot of good principles for
you
how
pulled
to
it
turn
out.
a dream into a reality.
That is Christopher Nolan's next movie. It's going to be called Extractor.
Hey, guys.
You're extracting all of the
look
deep
for
things.
Pagan USA.
Yep.
And don't just look. Hit the purchase button.
And you can follow
This is my commercial.
You can follow us on Instagram at Pagan USA. Also, if you were listening to the Bad Ready podcast, thank you so much. You can write a review on iTunes. You can listen to us on Spotify and YouTube. Wherever you are listening, wherever you are watching, we are so grateful for you. I cannot wait till we get to do a podcast about your project. I'm so excited.
Well, let's do it closer to Christmas.
Let's do it closer to Christmas, I guess.
When maybe I'll have a line coming out.
Oh. Ooh. Okay. I have photos of it on my phone and it's so cool. Okay, I gotta go now. Bye.
All right, take care, guys.